Happy Friday, everyone. Rich Swerbinsky with the Mortgage Collaborative here once again with the rundown with Rob and Rich. We just started broadcasting live. Rob is deplaning as well. We got Robbie in the house once again. And we got Tom Gallucci, who, let's go here, Tom. The fans of the show are asking for an update on the putting green you talked about last week. Let's see it.
So this is the full shebang. It's about 20 by 25 feet. Obviously big hole. My wife's imprint on the Masters tournament flag. I thought an awesome touch to it. And for some night putting and chipping as well. Doesn't show up very well in the daylight, but little neon cup holders and some light up balls that also don't show up very well in the daylight from one of our receptions at Terranea from our longtime partners at DocuTag.
Love it.
Yeah.
Anybody that knows Tom's wife knows she's cool, and you got to have a cool wife to be able to pull that maneuver off the massive putting green in the backyard.
Or you just start into it and then they have no other option but to get on board with you and help supervise and make sure you don't do a half-assed job.
You got to love the Midwest. Robbie, people out in the Bay Area aren't building homemade putting greens in their backyards like that, right?
No. How's it roll on the stimp meter, Tom? Maybe he's gone.
Tom, they're asking for a stimp meter reading.
So that was the most expensive part about this. I had to do legit fake turf, and I had no intention of doing real turf on here or real grass because I don't have that much free time. But I will be happy to do my best David Kittle impression and sink one in for you real quick to yeah. It's fun. Two-tiered. Cool. We'll have a lot of good times here. It'll be fun for the next strat plan.
Good stuff. A lot of funny comments in the chat already, and good reminder, as always, strive for interactivity on the show. So any questions, comments, jokes, thoughts, dump them in the chat, the Q&A, and we'll incorporate them into the show. As noted, Rob is just getting off a plane, I believe, in the Windy City, where TMC will be in about a month. Should be joining us from an airport terminal soon, and in his stead, been on the show the last few weeks, his son Robbie. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me back.
And I was asking your NFL allegiance. We hadn't had that conversation yet. Raiders fan, NFL season right around the corner. I mean, as a Raiders fan, coming off a great year, you got Devontae Adams coming in to play with his buddy Derek Carr from Fresno, but you're in this division, the AFC West. My God, the Chargers, the Chiefs, Russell Wilson in Denver with a great defense, and the Raiders. That's going to be a meat grinder this year. I'm
still recovering from the revelation this week that Brady and Gronkowski should have been on the Raiders and brought them a championship ring, and Dana White had brokered that deal. But yeah, tough division. I think Vegas has the over-under for Raiders wins at 6.5 or 7.5. So not expecting much this year.
But honestly, if they're in a different division, you got 6 games against those teams. If they're in the NFC East, that over-under is probably 9 wins, 9.5 because of how the schedule changes. So I looked at it today. Honestly, I think the biggest story to me going into this NFL season is the AFC is loaded. I would argue 9 of the best 12 or 10 of the best 13 teams in the league are in the AFC. Of the teams in the NFC that are in that upper echelon, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, the Rams, all older rosters, older quarterbacks. The shift of power, I've never seen it this dramatic. Who knows how it'll play out, but going into the season, to me, that's a big story.
And it could be that these teams just beat up on each other during the season, and maybe someone like the Buccaneers has an easier path through the playoffs and is fresher come Super Bowl time.
It's great. That's a great point. We've seen that happen before in the NFL, and as always, a lot of anticipation for the start of the season coming up just in a couple weeks.
I want to ask you, how much should the Browns mortgage their future to get Jimmy G over in Cleveland?
Zero, because I honestly, I like Jimmy G. I think he's solid core, but it just makes no sense because in 11 games, it's Deshaun Watson's team for the next, hopefully decade. But so I don't, and to me, Brissett, I kind of like Brissett. I don't know what you're getting that much of an upgrade. Brissett knows the offense. He's been in. I mean, I think to me, it's just you roll the dice. You hope Jacoby can get you 6-5, 7-4. Browns have a great roster, and see what happens. But we'll see.
That's an okay. I think Seattle is dealing with the same thing where if you're going to have Geno Smith as your starter, you're kind of, in my opinion, punting on the season. And I would think the Browns, yeah, you hope you can come back with a 500 or so record with Watson starting in week 12, but it's optimistic, and you could end up with a mid-round or mid-range draft pick and kind of be in no man's land there.
Well, we traded them all for Deshaun, so it don't matter where our draft pick is, at least the next couple of years. But let's hope it's 32nd for the Browns in the first round next year. But on to more depressing news than the start of the NFL season. The mortgage industry been kind of a crazy year. It's there's been no way to put a spit shine on it. It's been a tough year, coming off a couple great years with that precursor, but our industry continues to be driven really right now by the interest rate climate. The interest rate climate continues to be driven by inflation. And we had the Fed, Jerome Powell, Fed chairman today, came out and spoke in Jackson Hole, their annual summit of central bankers and economic minds. And, basically it was Jay Powell. It was the Tom Petty, I won't back down inflation. It was like the fake tough guy. When I watch, to tie it back to football, when I watch Jerome Powell speak, what keeps coming to my mind, which is horrible for Jerome Powell, is watching like Mike McCarthy try to like make key decisions late in the Cowboys game. Like that, should I call a timeout or not? 30 seconds left in the game, or what do you do here? And they pan over to McCarthy and he just looks terrified. That's the feeling I'm starting to get for Jerome Powell. Do you share my skeptical view?
I think he finds himself in a tough position because for a while they had said we're going to target this average inflation of 2%. And then he said inflation's transitory. And it seems like they've been forced to be reactive this entire time rather than proactive. And yeah, I get the sense that they're scrambling over there, which there was a school of thought going into his speech today that said, hey, maybe the Fed should take a minute and wait on more rate hikes to see how things play out because of the lag in the economy. But I think the message from this is there's going to be more rate hikes coming, price in 125 to 150 basis points over the remainder of the year. And the Fed's going to raise and hold and then see what happens.
It's just a very hawkish tone from Powell today. I think people expected hawkish, but came out and it was almost really defiant, just really, using tougher words than he normally uses to describe the Fed's commitment to beating inflation. And predictably, I mean, stocks just got obliterated. It was, they just got demolished. Rob, welcome. Is that Midway or O'Hare?
O'Hare, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you okay. So
Rich, every show it seems like you want to talk about airport parking lots and flight conditions, and I decided to try it out today. Now that I'm off the plane, we get on the plane. I'm sitting in steerage, of course, and the woman to my right, 3 minutes into the flight, folds down the tray and collapses onto it and snores for the next 4 hours. The guy at my 10 o'clock position, one row up, one row over, he reclines, and I'm watching the expression of the person, to my immediate left, who is, detests the whole thing. And then the guy can't get the seat back up. Sorry, I'm not going to bore you too long with this story, but the flight attendant, the flight attendant comes by and says, "Excuse me, sir, you need to put up your seat." And I guess he was from Scotland. He goes, "I cannot do it." And so then she she raises his seat for him, of course, and he goes, ah, ah. I don't know, some Scottish burr. But anyway, yeah, flight was packed. This O'Hare Airport is packed. So I know you and Robbie were talking about the stock market, but maybe I should turn the video on in case people start to get sick, motion sickness.
Do you get a
You know,
chance to see or hear any of the Jerome Powell commentary this morning in your travels?
no, they American Airlines in infinite wisdom jacked up the price of internet. So it was $25
Man,
for a two-hour pass, which
geez.
I thought was a little bit steep. So I didn't do it.
Wow.
Although I did watch a good documentary on Brian Wilson. But since I'm blathering on, Rich, have you asked Robbie about his journey as a new homeowner and his fight with the mice?
Well, I was just about to go there because I noticed is that the new house, Robbie? It looks like you're all moved in.
No, this is not the new house. This is a friend's house. I don't know if my house is fit for camera yet. Give it a couple months. Maybe next week.
So what about the mice? What's the mouse story?
Robbie tried to rent Myrtle, and I said no.
That is a true story. When I moved into the house, there was the previous owners had left a mouse trap that was full, and I'm thinking, okay, good, maybe they got the mice under control. And I went to the garage yesterday morning at 5:30 in the morning and turned on the light, and there's a mouse looking at me kind of bleary-eyed going, "What are you doing in my garage, man?" And I'm like, "This is my garage." And
It's the mouse's garage.
Let me guess. You waived the inspection to get the house, Robbie.
no comment.
Oh boy. All right.
Appraisal? What appraisal?
What a crazy year. We'll be talking about this year. Like we still talk about 07, 08, almost every show. I feel like this could be one of those years we talk about for a while. But anyway, moving onward. So anyway, Powell spoke, more hawkish tone than expected. 10-year really didn't know what to do. It's kind of stayed flat. Stocks fell off a cliff. Powell clearly setting the tone for a long fight ahead. People say this increases chances for recession if you believe in the odds in those things. And but the mortgage market really didn't react too much. But rates are up, right? I mean, we're up mid to high fives right now in a 30-year fixed, Robbie.
Yeah, and I want to go back to what you said right before my dad logged on, which is Powell was more hawkish than normal, but I would throw it back at you and say, what choice does he have? You got to project a unified front here and say, we're committed to this. It's fine if the unemployment rate rises. We need to get inflation back down. What choice did he have?
It's a good point. And I think but Powell, the other side of that would be he set a strong tone with the whole, like, the defiant inflation is transitory thing, right? Back last fall, like even people were like, well, it doesn't really look transitory anymore. I was saying it was transitory for a while. And then it was like, okay, it's not transitory anymore. He held on to that boat. Now I feel like he needs to be kind of forceful the other way. It's different from other Fed chairs. Like my favorite was Bernanke. I loved Bernanke. To me, he was a very smart guy. The way he explained things was very soothing. QE 1 and 2 both announced at Jackson Hole. Two very successful Fed maneuvers in, I think, was it 10 and 13? Rob Senior, you remember the QE 1 and 2 dates? You're on mute.
So you're spot on with those years, Rich.
10 and 13?
Yeah.
And if you remember at the time, people were screaming from the mountaintops that Bernanke was a lunatic, that this was going to be surefire inflation. You just wait 2-3 years from now, essentially what's happening now, they were predicting back then. It didn't happen at all. And Rob, you have a favorite Fed chair of all time?
Do I?
Greenspan guy.
Favorite Fed chair of all time? Robbie said you look like Alan Greenspan. That's horrible. My God, it's your dad. Jesus.
Who wanted him on the show?
Nobody.
Alan's still, out there, right?
Is he? Is he still alive?
The lifespan of a Fed chairman is,
Greenspan looked like he was on the brink of death when he was still the Fed chair. He can't be alive still.
no, pretty sure he is.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's a note here, who doesn't like free money? I think the general consensus, Rich, as you pointed out many, many times, is that the Fed has been behind the 8 ball to a great degree, and now we're paying the price. Sorry, I'll sit here for a minute, but the Federal Reserve, it's obviously a tough job, but to the extent that they have made it clear what their path is, and I have not read the Jackson Hole,
Rob, we're losing your connection is breaking up a little bit. You may be in a bad part of the airport. All right, Rob is we might have to mute Rob for the interim, Amy. He's breaking up. So
Going down just like Alan Green.
I don't have screens. Our rates are kind of where they want to be. I think. Yeah, I will mute myself.
I tried to mute him. I don't know what's happening.
Some funny comments in the chat about Rob doing that on purpose because you got a tough question. So
All right, we lost him.
Robbie, favorite Fed chairman of all time? You're a little younger than me, so you've only experienced, let's see here, just Powell, and before Powell was Yellen, right? Yellen before Powell?
Yeah, who doesn't like free money? Stimulate the economy, make my stock portfolio go up. Come on, Jerome, bring it back at the first sign of recession and dump some more stimulus into the economy and get my tech stocks back to where they were 6 months ago. So, he's leading the charge in my book.
He very popular. He was in the Reddit Wall Street Bets forum for 2020 and 21 as he was printing money, and people holding stocks were going crazy. So
I do wonder what lessons the Fed has learned in terms of when things start to turn again. Do they say this deserves a kind of a laissez-faire, hands-off approach to this, let economic cycles play out, versus saying we need to be on a rescue mission again and keep things like this? Because the housing market isn't like it was in 2008. It's not good. There's not going to be a systemic breakdown. Underwriting standards are better. We have Dodd-Frank, CFPB. I don't think it needs Fed intervention to the levels that it's received over the last year or two. And I think the Fed understands that, but I just wonder what happens here when we tip into worse economic times ahead.
That's a great point. We have such a strong infrastructure in place in the residential finance system in America now that the things that happened in 07 and 08 couldn't really happen again, at least not to the degree they did. But things change, things evolve. And I do find myself wondering if Jerome Powell is in over his head. I feel like when I watch him speak, he's in over his head, and things need to evolve and change. And the Federal Reserve, I would argue, has seen very, very little evolution as an organization, as an institution over the years. And you just wonder the importance of it to the world, our country, our economy.
So, but Rich,
am I barking up the right tree here, Rob?
No, you're not. No, you're not barking up any tree. I think that the countries need a central bank like the Federal Reserve, and I think the Federal Reserve has served as a model central bank for many of the central banks around the world. Of course, the central banks are made up of humans, and the central bank can't deny that there are business cycles. As we've talked about on the show, at some point there'll be a recession, and everybody who's been predicting a recession will be right. Like some point again, we'll see an expansion, and everybody who's been predicting an expansion will be correct. So we're in a business cycle. The interesting thing that I have found over the last few weeks when I talk to originators and brokers and so forth and realtors, yeah, a lot of the attention is on the Federal Reserve, but the uh, the markets are functioning. The Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are still out there buying loans. Investors are still interested in mortgage-backed securities. Private label securities, not so much. But then, when have they ever been really interested in private label securities? So we'll see what happens there. But although the attention is on the Federal Reserve, they're going to do what they're going to do. They're allowing the markets to function. Yeah, they were, quantitative easing and so forth. I think they've held rates, or they held rates too low for too long through buying assets. Uh, they're things are going to proceed. And the problem is, of course, the Federal Open Market Committee is made up of humans like you and me and Robbie and Amy and Tom and so forth and so on. And they make mistakes. They do the right thing sometimes. They make the mistake sometimes. But I think in general, they're doing. They've added some stability to the marketplace through some pretty tough times. Maybe Jerome Powell is in over his head. The question, though, that I face, as I was going to say, when I travel around and visit with lenders and originators is, all right, well, that's fine what the Federal Reserve is going to do, but what am I going to do to increase my business? What's the Federal Reserve doesn't set interest rates per se. They don't set mortgage rates. The question is, what is my company? First of all, is my company going to be around by Thanksgiving? And second of all, what is my company doing to help me originate loans? And what kind of products can we offer borrowers? Because these lenders have these great manufacturing facilities, and these vendors have these great products, and these credit reporting agencies have these great products that they can offer to consumers. The question is how best to do that. And the Federal Reserve, yeah, I don't know. It's a big question about doing the right thing or the wrong thing. But when it's all said and done, it's how are we going to help the consumers? And has the Federal Reserve done anything to hinder the markets from functioning properly? And I would say, to some extent, yeah, but I think that's over with. I don't know, Robbie, when you're interviewing people for your podcast, I mean, is the Federal Reserve a big topic, and what do you think is the general thinking about the FOMC out there now?
It's kind of the elephant in the room, and the Fed has tried to do a better job this year of telegraphing their moves ahead to reduce volatility in the market. However, with a 3+ point run up in rates, and now this indecision between 50 basis points or 75 basis points at the next meeting, with CPI doing one thing and unemployment figures and payrolls doing another, it's brought volatility back into the market. So I don't think the Fed has done a great job. However, I don't know what they could have necessarily done differently after the initial decision to dump all the money into the MBS market. They've kind of backed themselves into a corner here.
Yeah, so much of it is the originator and the broker and the account executive are so important in this whole equation. And I think that the Fed hasn't done anything certainly to dissuade people from owning a home. The question now, Rich, to your point, is, are people afraid of buying a place because of the Federal Reserve's actions in the recent past and going forward? Is the market overinflated? And I think maybe that's the discussion that loan officers and brokers are having with their clients who, may have been on the fence, and they're sitting there saying, well, gosh, if we go into a recession, is our property value is going to drop? And boy, I see these headlines, these sensationalist headlines. Oh my gosh, words like plummeting, cratering, free fall. And I think we're not in any kind of free fall. Property values are doing okay. Are we going to get 20% appreciation a year? No. What if we get 3% appreciation a year? That's not so bad. 5%, that's not so bad. there are still a lot of people out there who want to own homes. And when I talk to originators about the people being on the fence, I say, what are you talking to these borrowers about, or these potential clients about? And the discussion inevitably comes back to rent. What are you paying for rent now? How much has your rent gone up in the last year or two? Rents are on the moon. And so, yeah, rates have gone up. They went up through June. They've come down for the last couple of months. Now they've moved back up. But gee, potential client, what are your rents doing? And let's sit down. You know, I'm a subject matter expert for in this, and let's sit down and figure out your rent, figure out what your rent might do, and let's see if we have a program that we can put you in, whether it's a 3-1 or a 5-1 or a 15-year or a HFA or whatever, to figure out how we can get you in a home. That's what I'm hearing from originators.
Good comment in the chat. There's nowhere to hide for a non-homeowner. That's a very good comment. You got to live somewhere. And you know, yeah, there's just another report this week, you know, it was along the lines of, hey, values keep going up despite the fact that, you know, inventory rises and home sales are going down. It's like what we've been saying. People are going to buy the homes that are put out there in the marketplace right now because people have to live somewhere, and people are, I feel like people are spend more irrationally today than they did 10 or 20 or certainly 50 years ago. There's been a lot of people that have made commentary on this. Michael Burry, the guy that called The Big Short famous for that, you know, made some headlines a couple of weeks ago talking about just what he sees as an incredibly dangerous pattern of what he called like irrational, reckless spending by the American consumer in the face of inflation and citing credit card debt data and things like that. And, you know, bringing it into this student loan thing, and I don't want to get political about it, but, you know, people I've talked to about it this week, I said, like, it's bad. The way I look at it, it's bad for mortgage industry because it is you're in a very high inflation market and you're relieving millions and millions and millions of people of this debt. What are they going to do? They're going to go out and spend money like irrationally on baseball cards and shit they don't need and things that stoke inflation. And it is, that's my fear about this, the student loan thing.
Robbie, I apologize for Rich's language. Speaking of buying baseball club, Rich, did you already talk about, I think you have some recent baseball card purchases, right? Is that true? Oh my gosh, look at these look at the display back there.
It's the only card that Kobe and LeBron are pictured in together ever. That's a pretty cool card. So picked up
Kobe,
Cleveland.
Been in the news.
Manny Ramirez, Gem Mint 10 rookie card, another new addition. So, and a couple Mickey Mantles. They're beat up and old. 50 or 68.
This is what you spend your money on instead of therapy, or what are we doing here?
This is, I think I'm gonna, according to my girlfriend, need more therapy because of this sports card addiction I've developed. So
hey, Rich, don't let Robbie snow you under. He's over there, you know, wiping, you know, salivating over these, you flashing these cards.
Listen,
Robbie's got a stash.
People in the Midwest don't go to therapy. We bury it and harbor it, and yeah. So.
And have a Mickey's Big Mouth. So getting back to the interest rates in general, Rich, you're talking to TMC. Who's that?
It's the Steph Curry rookie. 7.5. It came back at.
Who's
now
that?
he's interested.
Gem Mint 10. This card's worth like 11. It just sold for 11 grand.
Oh, Steph.
Yeah, Steph Curry. Yep. It's a 7.5. It's like $900. So
in terms of Rich, you talking to, eyes up here, Rich, up on the mortgage show here. So you talk to TMC clients, lender clients all week long, all month long, all the time. Do you have a sense of the mood changing at all? Do people seem more optimistic? Is it, look, we're in this environment, we've been through it before, we're going to roll up our sleeves, put our nose to the grindstone and just do the best we can? Or are you getting the sense that companies are looking at some pretty drastic steps, like Mountain West Financial getting out of wholesale, things like that.
Yeah, and listen, Mountain West's a great company. It's probably a good move for them. But what I see right now is the answer to that question. It's more all over the board than I've ever seen it. What it is what we talked about last year, like how lenders spent the profits of the last 2 years. Very, very telling as to their current mood and their current MO, and how much on the offensive or defensive side of the ball they're in. And I think the people that were more realistic about the business climate this year, as opposed to maybe a little too glass half full. So there are companies that are incredibly well positioned, that are sitting on a lot of cash because they made a lot of money and their employees are happy and they're slowly growing market share. A lot of companies like that within TMC that love this kind of climate, because they know in the type of climate like this, good companies gain market share. And because you're gonna have a lot that are gonna fall off, there's gonna be acquisitions. And when you have an acquisition, it makes the bigger completed product crappier, at least for a while. So, and you got some lenders that are in, panic mode because they are not in as strong of a capital position, their ownership and cash and all that. And it's like a startup. Eventually you run out of money, and you can only lose money for so long if you're a small business.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There are those, and I'll tell you this, when I talk to the owners and CEOs, it's not a bad thing if they are looking at, quote, strategic alternatives for their companies, because it is, we're in a business cycle. And as we've talked about, older owners who have nurtured their, whether it's a vendor shop or a lender, to a certain point, do they want to go through this again? And or does it make more sense to sign a deal with a friendly competitor? And you don't need two capital markets departments or two compliance departments and two QC departments. If you can get along culturally and there's a fit there, why not become more efficient? And you're right. I think we come out of this, the companies that do more effective and more efficient. And I think that's the long-term view that many are taking. It's like, all right, let's figure this out. And Stratmore just put out a great article yesterday talking about, in this kind of environment, you try to expand, you try to contract, or do you get out of the business and so forth. And it really weighs all the alternatives and talks about the metrics that you should be looking at in making those decisions, because it is a business decision. And like I said, if you're an older owner and you don't have somebody to pass the baton to, or you're turning it into an ESOP is not really practical, there are alternatives that are perfectly honorable and make a lot of financial sense. And vendors are doing the same thing. So, Rich, do you have any idea? I mean, Tom, you talked to Tom a fair amount, and Tom's in touch with all the TMC vendors throughout the week. What is what is he saying about the vendor attitude or mentality that's out there?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably on if he wants to just jump in. But again, I think there too, it depends on the company, right? It depends on much capital you have behind you and the momentum you have and what your product is, who your competition is there. I think it's so hard to answer that question broadly, just because there's some vendors that are really well positioned and others that probably not as much. But it's, to be certain, a tough climate. It's yet it's the same climate that it was really before the pandemic. I keep reminding people that I know everybody's saying 2 trillion. It's just not going to be 2 trillion this year. I'm supposed to be $1.7 trillion probably, but we had like, I must say, like 3 of the 4 years before the pandemic were like $1.6 trillion, $1.7 trillion, weren't they?
Yeah, we're back to where we were some years ago. And I think everybody agrees that the last couple of years, drinking from a fire hose, weren't going to continue. But to your point, the mentality, what's out there is, what did companies do with the money that they were making? Just like families of originators or people who are doing well in the industry, what did they do with the money that they were earning in the last few years? Did they go out and buy, Steph Curry mint basketball cards or fancy cars or whatever, or did they squirrel it away for a rainy day? And I think that differentiation is very, very important this year and next year too.
This is the Rundown with Rob and Rich. I'm Rich Swerbinsky with the Mortgage Collaborative, joined as always by Rob Krisman and his son, Robbie Krisman. And Rob, it was leaked by me, but it was leaked. You're missing the next 3 shows. I gave it to Housing Wire. They scooped your own story that you're going to be missing the next 3 rundowns. So there's been a lot of rumors and speculation, your absence. People thought maybe you and Barry Habib were doing a speaking tour.
Well, I Rich, since you brought it up, wasn't going to go there. Barry and I did share a venue last week with the Florida Association of Mortgage Professionals. And I got to hand it to Barry. He had 2 people giving him an introduction. And after that, he had about a 6 or 8 minute video on himself. And so there's no way I could top that. So I'm hoping to learn from the master himself, but no, I'll be away for a little bit, and no, there's no speaking involved.
We tried to have him lead a breakout session at a TMC conference some years ago, and he basically said, "This is the most insulting thing ever." He called himself the Michael Jordan of keynote speakers. We're like, you know what? We're going to move on from the Barry Habib bandwagon. So,
but he serves a role.
What's that? What role?
Well, Rich, I'm trying to put a positive spin on this.
Okay. So how about this weather?
I need to mute Rich too.
Any truth to the rumors that you named Robbie because it was the only name you could remember? I know you and Mary Jane are tight. I just end the speculation.
Mary Jane?
It's your wife's name, I thought. No?
Mary Jane. Is that slang for Robbie, is that still slang for joint?
More in over their head. Jerome Powell or the plant director at Chernobyl?
Oh my gosh. All right, we've gone way off path. We're losing viewers by the dozen. So anyway, Robbie, what besides the mice have you found home ownership to be good so far, a few weeks into it?
It's been a week, and I don't mean that it's been a week. Oh, so hard. I mean that it's been 7 days. So I've enjoyed it so far. This is the first time in my life I've felt settled. I think I moved 11 or 12 times since college, and this is the only one I was excited about. And it's nice to put roots down somewhere. And also, I got the 45 days without a mortgage payment. So these are the best 45 days I'm going to have the entire time. It isn't like a boat. The best day is the day you buy it and the day you sell it. House is similar.
Yeah, that's a great selling point for the originators on the call here. I think that you've moved 11 times, and now you're settled. Now you feel settled, and what a great feeling that is. And that's something renters don't have. Another selling point. So.
How was the airport park? We need the airport parking lot up there, Rob, in Chicago. How was it? Was it robust and full?
Yes, it was.
And so your absence, where you don't want to, you were just so that's why we've been having Robbie on, is to, one, we like having Robbie on, and two, to prepare for Rob being on. So we'll have Robbie on the next 3 weeks. We've got some good guests coming out. We got Mark Zandi from Moody Analytics, really smart guy on housing. Next week, we've got the Jody Hall and Katie Klaus duo, which anybody that knows that duo knows they're not only highly intelligent, but highly amusing, couple really sharp leaders in our industry.
Rich told me I couldn't carry the show by myself, so we needed more and more guests is what I was told. But yeah, tell the public whatever you want.
I think Rich is just trying to raise.
Your dad insisted on it. You don't want me to say anything yet. Yeah.
Rich is trying to raise the average IQ on the show, apparently. Can't
That's not.
blame him. So,
What else? What else? What else? There's some stuff in the chat. Conference attendance. I've heard our conference is up. It's going to be our biggest by far, but in general, I've heard conference attendance is down. Something in the Q&A about that. Something in the Q&A about the wholesale price wars. Robbie, anything in there that?
so the FAMP registrations, the Florida, 1,700 people were on the attendance list for the
We're
FAMP
600
event.
Altusars employees.
Not Barry Habib's spam account.
You know, I can't. Do I have to sit here and
Show's going
defend?
off the rails today.
Do I have to be the only guy here defending Habib? No. So
When you're
I don't.
defending Barry Habib, you know the show's gone off the rails.
Yeah, I think yeah. I think that God, where was I? I keep flashing back to his video. Sorry. A conference attendance. I think Nashville, the National in October is going to be good. TMC. I know Western Secondary a couple of weeks ago in Southern California was very, very good. So I haven't heard conference attendance being down, but it does make sense as companies, instead of sending 4 people, maybe they'll send 2, kind of thing. So it does cost money to go to a conference, and companies are asking themselves, what is the return on investment? What is the ROI of sending 10 people to a given conference? Can we do it with 5? So what else is being talked about in the chat box, Rich?
The wholesale price wars, Robbie, Cap Markets guy and podcast guy. What do you make of the all the crazy Michigan wholesale mortgage lenders going nuts up there?
I had mentioned this last week and I want to expand slightly on it. With Wells Fargo potentially pulling back from the correspondent channel, and them being such a big buyer, they were able to drive prices lower in a way. And so there might be better margins out there for the companies that are able to survive, but it's going to be tough for the next several months to survive. And those companies that were prepared for this and had cash on hand for this rainy day and were able to figure out how they wanted to scale and have a plan in place beforehand, those are the ones that are going to be better off come the other side of this.
Yeah.
Very, very well said.
This will be, Rich, I think a case study, just like the pandemic is going to be a case study for hundreds, if not thousands of years about what happens to an economy, what happens to buyer psychology during a pandemic. But if you look at what some wholesalers are doing to pricing and publicly going to do to pricing and prepared to really bite the bullet. I mean, let's take a real basic example that I like to use. You have a little town in Missouri, and there's 2 filling stations in this little town, and one decides, you know what, I've got some savings. I am going to price and make no money on every one of fuel that I sell for the next few months or next quarter, and see what that does to my competitor across town. It won't take long for that other competitor to either have to bite the bullet or go out of business, either break even or go out of business. And the wholesalers that remain are only too happy to watch companies like Loan Depot or Mountain West Financial go out of business. So it's very much a dog-eat-dog environment in the wholesale arena. And what happens is brokers benefit, right? Because they have a more competitive price to offer. And it does spill over into the retail environment because retail branches in a distributed retail environment, they have to compete with those brokers up the street who are offering, those prices that are cutthroat prices. So it does impact the entire industry, not necessarily in a positive way, but in a way.
All right. Well said. As always, time flies by and we are out of it for the week. I want to thank our attendees for wrapping the week up with us. We're here live on Zoom every Friday from 3 to 3:45 p.m. Eastern podcast, where I know a lot of you listen, and then also on YouTube after the fact. And Rob, it'll be a few weeks, so enjoy the time away. Robbie and I will hold the fort down.
If I have internet, I will try my best to join in, but not likely.
Okay. All right.
Not likely.
Robbie, any you're still moving this week. I'm good. You're just nothing but house stuff, right? I would guess for the foreseeable future.
I'm off to Denver to go irrationally spend money on a car.
No, so much for that. All right, the exact opposite of what I predicted. All right.
And Robbie, how long have you been waiting for that vehicle?
I put a deposit down with Ford last November. I was told it'd be ready in February, and between chip shortage and the ice road truckers of Canada just ruining everything with the blockade, now here it is ready in August.
Ford, did you get a truck or something different?
Got a Pinto.
I got a Raptor with a 37 package. New house, new car. I'm jack up the debt, leverage me up. Let's go. Forget my credit score.
Yeah, honestly, it's like the poster child for the person that Michael Burry is terrified of. That's gonna bring America down with their irrational spending. Rob, it's your son.
Raised
What
well.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Until next Friday, we'll see you then. And Rob, enjoy the time away. Robbie, I'll see you soon. Take care, guys.
See ya.